Good evening, or good midday, or good midnight, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I want to welcome you to episode number 7 of AdWords Bootcamp, or AdWords Academy, if you will. Mike is on with me, as usual, and this particular topic literally does merit an entire course of its own, and we actually have done an entire course of its own. Mike, do I remember right that it was 10 separate webinar installments?
I think it was about six.
Oh, six.
Modules
Okay.
plus the one up front, but it was about 10 hours. You're right. Yeah, 10
Got
hours.
it. Got it. So, right, because I knew I heard the number 10, and 10 hours of content. This is a rich topic, and so much we could say about this, and we just have 90 minutes today to devote to this. So in 2013, yes, we did do Display Network Bootcamp with our esteemed Mike Rhodes, and a good deal of that that material is still relevant and applicable. It's just some buttons and a few other things inside the Google interface have certainly shifted places since then, but I know the fundamentals are there, and it's just such a rich topic. And the power of Google search is you get in front of eyeballs of people who are looking for you. The display network has a very different power, and it's a very different animal. The power of the display network is your ability to target and reach people in amazing, far-off, remote corners of the internet, and get your message in front of them. And then remarketing, which lets you get your message again in front of people who have already at least once been introduced to you, and to have a presence with them even when they're not actually on your site or reading your emails per se. So deep, rich topic, tons to say, and I don't want to steal any more of your time, Mike, so tell us what you got today.
All right. Well, we'll start with an overview, and then we'll dig into 6 of the main different types of campaign that you can set up. I've got a little bonus gift for you in the middle, and then we'll finish off with a couple of other bits and pieces. It has been difficult, this one, I'll say, because it is one of my absolute favorite topics, particularly the remarketing side. I did a 2-hour webinar just on advanced remarketing recently, and all of the stuff around that. So yeah, trying to squeeze all this into 90 minutes has been very difficult. I'll start with making it relatively sort of beginner level, because I think most of us on here understand the what, but I will go into a little bit of detail just at the beginning, just to set the scene here, and then we'll dig into specifics of how you go do this and spend most of our time on that. It is essentially, yeah, you've kind of said this already, but if search is equivalent to the Yellow Pages, then display is equivalent to the magazine rack, be that the physical one at your local newsagent or the virtual one at magazines.com. It's people browsing, it's people reading content. You mentioned far off corners of the internet. The wonderful thing here is that we don't even know what those far off corners are. There are quoted 2 million plus websites that are part of Google's display network. So again, we covered this, not sure where, probably module 4, 3 places where we can show ads. There's the search network, there's Google search, there's the search partner network, and then the display network. So showing ads on these 2 million and probably 3 million plus websites at this point. And we don't know what all of those are. We know what some of them are, the big ones like Oprah and CNN and the Sydney Morning Herald and the Guardian. But then there's all these thousands and thousands and thousands of other little blogs and forums and all sorts of sites, but Google know where they are and what they're about and what every page of them is about. And they have essentially gone to Google and said, we want to make some extra money from our website. It's all too hard for us to manage. we'll do a deal with you. We basically draw boxes on our site and say you can put some ads in those boxes. It's up to you what ads you throw in there, and we'll split the cash when somebody clicks on those ads or when somebody displays an ad, depending on how it's set up. That's essentially what's happening. They've all gone out and said, we want to make a bit of extra money. Google, you're in charge. You figure out which ads to show to which person, and we'll split the cash. And bear in mind that Google think about advertising as information. A good ad should be information, should add to the value for that user. It shouldn't be just annoying and interrupting. And that's why I love display, because a lot of people try display, but they don't understand the power of targeting and the different ways that we can do targeting, and we can make that ad incredibly relevant to the person viewing it, so therefore they are much more likely to be interested by it. In other words, to click it, which is going to make us money as advertisers, going to keep users happy, keep Google happy. Why do we want to use display in addition to search? Because don't get me wrong, I absolutely love search, pays the mortgage, I've been doing it 10 years, love search, but there are times where we want to extend our reach to reach a new group of people, people that don't yet know that we exist. So this is top of the funnel stuff, can also be right at the bottom of the funnel. I'll show you that as we go. But what I mean by top of the funnel, people that don't know what they don't know, people that don't know that they have that problem yet, and we just need to increase their awareness. We talked about Eugene Schwartz right at the beginning, and how the different levels of awareness. Let's reach those people that don't know about us yet. It's also obviously visual. 4-line ad on the front page of Google is lovely, but there are times when, and I'm not a branding guy, I want to be very clear about that, I am a direct response marketer, not a branding person, but there are times where getting that logo, getting your name in front of people visually can be much more powerful. Ultimately though, for me, again, this is why I've got the results on there, because this is not about brand building. This is about CPA. And we have all of the controls that we have with Google search. All of your campaign settings are practically the same. So you have that same level of very, very finite control. So for me, this is about CPA. 2 million plus websites covered that. Okay, so let's dig into the how. And I shared this list very early on. Might have been module 1, might have been module 4. These are all the different types of, or most of the different types that we would build on a regular basis. There are a couple of others. So I'm going to walk through each of these in a bit more detail and show you how to set them up. But let's just set the scene and cover what these are. Managed placements. So this is the easy option, and this is pretty much how display media has been bought for the past 15 plus years. Client comes along and says, New York Times, that's a big website. I think my target market hang out there. Please, can you get some of my ads on the New York Times? Or maybe it's on the tech section of the New York Times or the lifestyle section. Oprah, yeah, we're going to do a direct buy on Oprah. So it's all about picking the website because you believe that's where your target market, in inverted commas, hang out. I want to show ads on these few, generally very, very big websites. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not as powerful as the other methods that we have here. Contextual, this is where you say to Google, I want you to go place my ads based on the content of the pages that you can go find. So if I'm selling, dog training, just for the sake of argument, Google, go find pages that are all about dog training. And we give Google a list of themes and say, go find pages that match these themes and place my ad there. The assumption being, if somebody is reading about that topic, they are more likely to want to buy a product or a service that is related to that topic, which makes more sense. If they're reading a dog training blog, they're much more likely to be interested in your dog training product than if they're reading the stock market or whatever it might be. Remarketing. So then we get into, once we've covered those two, we get into the more behavioral aspects. And this, for me, is the future of Google. This is where I think Google wants to take things, because it makes sense that if we can target ads more and more based on someone's past behavior, especially recent past behavior, that's probably a much better indication that this is an ad that is going to highly interest that person. And again, come back to what we talked about before. It's going to be therefore an ad that doesn't annoy them, and it's a more relevant ad, and more relevance is the whole game with Google. If we can show this person a more relevant ad, it's better for the user, better for the advertiser, therefore it's better for Google shareholders. So remarketing, as you've already said, Brian, the behavior here is based on the fact that they have been to our website or a part of our website, or not been to a part of our website in the recent past, probably recent past, but you can cookie people for a year and a half in the Google system, or half a year, 180 days with Facebook. So remarketing, marketing again to people that have already been to our website. In market and affinity, these are kind of two sides of the same coin. We used to have interest targeting. It got retired on the 15th of Jan this year, I think it was, and it got replaced with these two, which have been running alongside it for quite a while. The algorithm for these is much better, and it's a more interesting way to target. I'll start with affinity, because I'm not actually going to dig deep into affinity, because affinity is more about reach. In market, it's more about ROI. I'm all about results, so I'm going to teach you in market, but affinity is more of a long-term interest. Last time I saw it, there were 89 different categories in this section, and that'll be stuff like avid investor, or savvy parents, or fashionistas. It's a little bit more like the way that TV advertising has been bought for the last 50 years. What's the group, not just based on demographics, but also on psychographics? What's the group of people that you want to target? Oh, you want to reach savvy parents, right? Show an ad in the middle of this program over here, or buy an ad in this magazine. You want to reach avid investors, right? It's this program or this magazine or a billboard here in this part of town. And that's really what affinity is. It's Google looking at your long-term interests based on your browsing history. Which type of websites do you go to more often than the average person? Which websites do you stay on longer than the average person? And therefore it makes some assumptions, about your long-term interests. In market, though, is much more interesting to me, because that's short-term interest. Based on your browsing habits and your short-term search history, i.e. what's the stuff that you've been searching for actively recently. Google don't give us an exact date there, it's just recently. Let's assume it's weeks rather than days or months. Google know that we are in the market for one of about 500 categories at this point in time, with more being added to this all the time. And business services actually just rolled out a beta a couple of weeks ago. There's some very interesting ones in there, and I'll show you how to find that in a second. And display select. We are having a lot of fun with this in the office here. I know we're geeks, but because we're just getting awesome results. I just was reviewing an account with one of our account managers the other day, and we're getting leads for $42 in an industry where for search they're costing 110, and we thought 110 was a massive win. I mean, this is an industry where you can pay up to $100 a click, and we're getting leads for 110, where really our goal was anything under 500 is good, and we're getting leads for $42 with display select. So I'll explain exactly what that is when we get to that section of the show. And then YouTube. YouTube is like 2005 all over again. Penny clicks, 3 cent, 4 cent, 5 cent clicks. And again, a cheap click is not necessarily a good click. It is the result that matters. It's the profit that matters. But when you can get this enormous volume of very, very cheap and still somewhat targeted traffic, then good things can happen. I just consulted on a YouTube account recently. They spent $750,000 in 3 weeks, pretty much from a standing start, and did so profitably. I'm not going to tell you what industry it's in. I'm not going to tell you what they sell. The conversion rate was horrible. It was 0.0 something. Yeah, it was awful. But the traffic was so cheap, and there was so much of it, that they were able to get enough people to the site and have them buy. Even though they were in tiny numbers, it was still able to be profitable, and then this has a recurring continuity on the back of it. So imagine what a fun month they're going to have next month. So they're my 6 go-to campaigns. You've also got a couple of other options in GDN. One is topic targeting, which is sort of similar to interest targeting in a way, and you've also got demographics, so age, gender, and even parenting status has appeared in the last few months. We typically use these extra ones as a layer over the top. So if we want to refine a particular targeting option that we've got, we might then either just bid differently for those different attributes. So let's say we think this is a much more of a female-only product, then we'll bid females higher, males lower. Or if it's a product that really only suits seniors, then we might bid sort of 55 and up, 65 and up, much, much higher, and maybe exclude ads from the 18 to 35 market. But typically we won't target a demographic segment, and we won't use that for the only piece of targeting. We'll layer those over the top. So before we get into the different types, how do you go do it? Well, we've already seen how to build a new campaign. We know where the big red campaign button is. They just changed the layout of this in the middle of me creating these slides, which was nice of them. It now looks like this. You pick a campaign name. The type obviously is display network. We said we're never ever going to use the Google search with display select. We're never going to use that. We're either going to use search network only, display network only, or shopping. So this is under the display network only dropdown. And I'm going to suggest, okay, this is nice and new and it's nice and shiny. I'm going to suggest you pick on no marketing objective, because if you pick the marketing objective there and you pick one of these 3, build awareness, influence consideration, drive action, then you don't actually get all of the features available. And I love you've got to love the NLP stuff here, don't you? The fact that you have to choose something that says no marketing objective. I have no clue what I'm doing, Google. I'd like to do this one, please. I know you're just trying to tell me that I'm stupid for picking this one, but I have no marketing objective. Actually, what we're saying is, no, we know exactly what we're doing. We just want to make sure that all of the available options are there so that I can use them when I need them. Because if I pick one of your marketing objectives, I'm not going to have all of the options available down the track when I want to add that to my account. So pick the one there that says no marketing objective and then all features, so that everything is added to your campaign and you have options down the track. So for each of our different targeting options, and we may have 6, we may have more, you're going to have a pair of campaigns. One campaign for your image ads, one campaign for your text ads. Almost all of the accounts that I audit, if they have any display set up, which is probably only 10% of them, most of them have one campaign and it's all mixed together, the image and the text ads. It's bad for 2 reasons. The first is the stats. Stats are very, very different for these 2 types of ad. Your average position for image ads is almost always going to be 1.0, maybe 1.1. You generally pay a little bit more for image ads. You might want to bid that a little bit higher. So the stats, if you mix all of that together at a campaign level, it gets hard to see. And if you mix these ads together in the same ad groups, then it gets very convoluted and very difficult to see what's working at a glance. But the main reason is this thing called frequency capping. So you don't have frequency capping in search, but frequency capping is exactly what it sounds like. You get to cap or limit the frequency that your ads get shown. So it's an impression level frequency cap, and you get to say, and Facebook doesn't have this. You can show one ad from this ad set to each person each day, or it's unlimited. There's nothing in between. With Google, we get to choose exactly the limit that we want, and there's a bit of flexibility over here. So I might set, for example, for an image ad campaign, I might say, I don't want to annoy people on my remarketing campaign, for an example. I don't want to annoy people and have them see my ad over and over and over again. We've all had this, where we've been to a website and over the course of the next half an hour, we see 50 of their ads in half an hour. That's going to have a negative brand impact. That's going to hurt you. That's not going to help you. That's not going to drag loads of people back to your site. It's just going to piss people off. So I will cap my image ad campaigns typically to something pretty low. I'm generally pretty conservative with my frequency capping, so I might have 2 or 3 impressions per day for an image ad campaign, but my text ad campaign, because it's much less noticeable if you see a text ad as you're browsing through these GDN sites, a text ad campaign might have a frequency cap of, say, 10 a day. And you can also set this per week or at longer periods, but generally I'll do a daily cap for the campaign. So you can say per ad group, per day or per week. I just tend to think it's much easier to go, okay, all the ads in this campaign, let's go 3 a day. Because if I do it per week, then I might end up showing 20 ads in one day and then nothing for the rest of the week. So I like to sort of spread the ads out and have them see a little bit every day. I just think, for me, that gets the best results. And then as we're building these campaigns, the type of targeting that we're going to use is going to be different. But as much as possible, keep this in mind as we go through and build one ad group for each audience that we're going to target. And I'll define what the audience is for each of the different types of campaign. So let's go managed first. So again, this is where you pick a particular website, in this case Vogue Australia, and because of your client, or generally this is because the client tells you, I want to see my ads on Vogue Australia. And you can see that, is it Carrot & Co, I think that is, Concept Store. You can see they've got a leaderboard across the top of the page there and a MedRec over on the right-hand side. So there's 2 ads on the home page here, and they might say, yep, this is where I want to show my ads. So you get lots of control with this method. You get to control exactly where your ads are showing up. It's a little bit like exact match keywords.
Mike, can I bother you to go back and show that last screen again? Because I admit I got confused about what we're looking at here.
So the ad with all the little pictures across the top of the page, and over on the right-hand side there, those are both ads for an additional store. This is not part of Vogue, but these are served up through Google's display network, and they may have, I don't know what they're doing, but if you wanted to do what they're doing and say, show my ads on Vogue, because that's where I believe my target market are hanging out, those are ads.
Okay. That was not immediately obvious to me when I looked at this, because it looked like something you would see on Vogue.
Okay. So thank you. Next time I edit this slide, I'll put big red boxes around those so it's a bit more obvious. Cool. Yeah, so I like to think of this, it's almost a bit like exact match. With exact match, you're saying, only show my ads if the search query exactly matches this keyword. So it's a little like saying, only show my ad on this URL or group of URLs. It might be all of Vogue, or it might be just the bridal section of Vogue, or whatever that might be. And with exact match, we have no discovery. When we talked about campaigns, about the method that we often use, winners and discovery campaigns. So we use a discovery campaign, typically all mod broad keywords, to discover new search queries, and then when we find a winner, then we peel and stick that winner into its own winners campaign. We up the bid, we run it as hard as we can because we know it's profitable. And this isn't going to happen if you do managed placements. You're not going to discover new placements where you could be showing ads very profitably. So when that client comes along and says, we want to show our ads on Vogue, my question will be, why? What is it that you hope to achieve with that? Because typically, our clients will be interested in CPA and in making a profit in direct response. So I have no idea if showing an ad on Vogue is going to be the most profitable place to show ads. And generally, it's not going to be. The big websites, because you've got lots of competition there, you've got lots of dumb advertisers all trying to show ads in the same place, therefore costs are going to be higher. Well, what about all the little fashion blogs that you don't know of that we can serve ads on, even if they're not in Australia? So if I have an Australian client, we can show ads on Oprah or the New York Times or a tiny little German blog about fashion that nobody's ever heard of. Google knows where they are, and I can say to Google, obviously only show ads to people viewing these websites, even though they're not Australian websites. But if the person viewing the website is in Australia, show the ad. Or only if they're in Sydney. Only on a Tuesday afternoon. Only if I can get the click for less than $1.50. Lots and lots of power. And that's why we want discovery. That's why we want to use the other targeting options to discover other placements that are going to be profitable, so we can tip more and more money into those. Now, I'm not going to dig deep into the display planner, but I just wanted to call it out so that you know that this is here. It's kind of very similar, really, to the keyword planner these days. It lives under the tools section of your account, tools and then display planner. And here you can kind of do something similar with the keyword planner. I can go in here right at the top of the screen. You can see I've said my customers are interested in baseball. Should probably have a big red box around that as well. I'll change that next time. And then Google will go off and say, all right, I've found all these topics that I think match baseball. I found all of these interests, all these mobile apps where you could go and show some ads. I've got a bunch of keyword ideas for you. I got a bunch of sites down here at the bottom. Oh, okay, well let's dig into those sites, and I see Fangraphs there at the front. So then I can dig into fangraphs.com, and Google gives me all this information, demographic information, the device information, and typically what's very useful for us is the ad formats, and saying these are the sizes of ad that this website allows. So great information. And I could, if I was an old school media buyer, go say to my baseball client, well, here are 20 websites that I suggest we go and put ads on, and 5 apps, and we need these size ads from you. But still, there's no real discovery going on. We don't know if those are the best places to show ads, and that's why I'm going to suggest we use the other types of targeting that we're going to go into. So for an ad group setup for our managed placement, it would look a little like this. We go into, once we've set up the campaign, we obviously get prompted on the next screen to create a new ad group. Once you've created your first one, you can then create them over and over again, however you prefer to do that. I showed you in detail how to do this at a keyword level using Google Docs and the AdWords editor. I would suggest you do exactly the same thing. You've got a list of placements, and you're going to add them, again, one audience for every ad group. So in this case, it's one placement, it's one URL for each ad group. I wouldn't be doing it this way if I were you. I would be doing it a faster way using a spreadsheet and AdWords editor. But for your very first ad group, maybe do it this way just the very first time, just so you know how painful it is, just to give yourself the extra impetus to go learn AdWords editor. You pick an ad group name, you pick a bid, you come down here and it says, okay, I can choose how to target. I've got keywords, don't want to use that. I've got interest in remarketing, don't want to use that. Where's placement spike? It's gone. Right, use a different targeting method, and then under the drop down there, then we've got topics, placements, and demo. We're going to pick placements. And then on the next screen, I can then search for ideas. And as soon as I put one in, up at the top there, you can see I've put ebay.com.au. It then lists a whole bunch of similar placement ideas. So again, we're sort of doing a little bit of discovery here, but we still have to pick and choose at the beginning which websites we're going to show on. So I've picked 5 here just as a sample, just to show you, just as an example. It's illustration only. Please don't go targeting these websites because I think they're good or anything like that. Just illustration. I could, if I wanted to, pick placement ideas from that list, add them over to the right hand side, and it would then go dump all of those placements into that ad group that we just created. So you can see how painful this would be to go through one at a time. If you really want to do a managed placement campaign, I'd suggest you come in here, use Display Planner, or you use the suggestions in here, and you find as many as you can that you think match. Add them all into the one ad group just to get them into your account. Then go into AdWords Editor, pull them all out of AdWords Editor, stick them in the spreadsheet, tidy them up, stick them back in Editor, stick them back in the account. Hopefully that made sense. But the reason I'm not going into all of that detail in a massive step-by-step, 1, we don't have enough time, we're half an hour in already. 2, you're not going to do many managed placement campaigns. You just need to know it's there because that's the one that your clients are going to ask for. Let's move on and look at some other more interesting ones. One placement per ad group, I've said that. At the bottom of that screen, what you couldn't see, because we opened up the drop-down box to get placements, there's this little targeting optimization box underneath that. let AdWords go find new customers for you. I'm going to suggest, funnily enough, that we don't use that yet. Happy for you to go in and pick that later. And if you're an old school AdWords user, you'll remember this thing called DCO, Display Campaign Optimizer. That's what the aggressive targeting is now named. So you put a little tick in that box, and then you get to choose between conservative and aggressive. DCO is now called aggressive targeting. Once you've got a bunch of data, then you can give Google the reins and say, you go find me more people just like the people that convert, and here's my CPA target. For 15 bucks, if you can get me leads for less than 15 bucks, Google, go on, Brian, you know you want to say it, knock yourself out.
Knock yourself out.
Then give Google the reins and say, go find me those people. But to begin with, you don't want that. So we're going to turn that off. We're going to do it all manually first. All right. Wow, time's getting away from me already. Contextual. So contextual. Again, we're giving Google a list of keywords. The keywords then describe a theme, and we're saying to Google, go find pages that match this theme. I don't care where they are. You figure out where they are, pages on whatever website you think fits this theme, and show my ads there. Now, you can use as many keywords as you like to describe a theme. The maximum that Google are going to look at are 50. So no more than 50 50 keywords in an ad group, because they'll just ignore the rest. So don't ever have more than 50. The way I used to teach this a couple of years ago, we would do 5-word groups. These days we'll do 1-word groups, which makes it much, much faster to set up. It's just like the spreadsheet I showed you again. All the stuff that we did in Module 4 when we built out our search campaigns. 1 keyword per ad group, all in the same campaign. It's the exact same spreadsheet template that you already have. It's just a different campaign type. But you can do all of that the same way in Spreadsheet and Editor.
So am I to believe that the anti-taboo strategy is
oh, you've got a good memory.
Now an archived thing of the past?
It's now anti? Yeah, it is, unfortunately. And we will still test 5-word groups occasionally against 1-word groups. The other reason I don't teach that anymore is that the grouping of those keywords, because the contextual tool went away. So we used to have this tool that would build those 5-word groups for us. That went away, yeah, about 2 or 3 months after we recorded Display Network Bootcamp. That was a great tool for quickly building out groups of 5 keyword groups. And you can build thousands of them in minutes.
And it is no longer.
They retired that tool. It is no longer. You can still do it in Excel, but it's much harder to teach. And to be honest, the results are marginal. Sometimes 5-word groups are better than 1. Other times 1-word groups are better than 5. So for the most part, we use 1 and then we manage them pretty aggressively. So 1-word groups. And all I'm showing you here by entering 4 keywords is the ideas part. So I enter 4 keywords in here. I can either add those 4 keywords into 1 ad group. So again, if I was going to do this properly and do it the super slow way, I would enter 1 keyword here, add the keyword over to the right hand side, go back, create a new ad group name, add a keyword, add it to the right, go back, do it again, do it again, do it again. So one way to speed this up is you enter a boatload of keywords in here first of all, and then split them out into different ad groups later. But you guys are smart. Start in Excel or Google Docs, build it all out in there, and build 1 keyword per group. The other thing, the reason I've put 4 in here is so I can show you the find related keywords down at the bottom here. Once I put those keywords in, hit find related, you can see from the size of the scroll bar there that it finds me a big long list of related terms, just like the keyword planner would. So I'll definitely have a look through those. I won't add them all without looking at them, but I'll glance through that list, I'll add them all, I'll build them out as 1 keyword ad groups, and now I might start my contextual placement campaign with a few hundred ad groups, typically the same ads in each, but 1 keyword, a different keyword for every group. And match types don't matter in this case, so you don't need to add it 3 times, you don't need to worry about changing the match type. We use broad because it's just easier. You don't have to worry about any punctuation in your Excel spreadsheets and so on, so broad match types, absolutely fine. But again, 1 keyword per group. So which keywords? Begs the question. Well, start with your existing non-brand and or brand if you want to tip those in if you think that's going to help. But typically start with your existing non-brand keywords, and or a great place to start, because there's typically a lot more of them, is all of your search query data. So you might look back at the last 12 months in dimensions and grab 10,000, if you're being really keen, search queries. Again, eyeball the high traffic ones, the high impression ones, just to make sure that they're on target, they're on track. But oftentimes we'll grab that massive list, copy it across, so that becomes the ad group name, stick the campaign in the campaign column, paste them all into editor. Robert's your father's uncle, brother, but you know what I mean, whatever. Right, any questions about those two before we move on to behavioral targeting?
No questions about those two. I'll keep my eye on the question box.
Awesome. All right, so like I said,
one came in.
Oh, go on.
All it takes. So Ian asks, could you add keywords all into one ad group and then export into Excel from editor? Change the keywords into their own ad groups?
Yeah, so that's often, if you're going to use these Google tools to help with the setup, that's often what we'll do, Ian. It's a really good way to do it. So you dump 800 keywords into the one group, you stick it in the account in a paused ad group, you open up AdWords Editor, you find that ad group, you then dump it from there out into Excel. You now just copy the keyword across into the ad group column name. So now you've got, instead of the same ad group name for all of those, you've now using the keyword name as the ad group name. But I've also seen this done with numbers. So you can start the first ad group as 0001, 0002, and then just copy that down all the way down to 800 or however many it might be. The ad group name is not important. I remember Brad Geddes talking to me about this. He saw a guy on stage last year at SMX Sydney. So he's probably in Australia. He might even be listening to this. If it's you, sir, please do write to me, because I want to laugh at you in person. Teaching people on stage at a big event that the ad group name is really important, and that you have 1,024 characters and you should use all of those to describe to Google in as much detail as possible, because that will help Google understand the relevance. I want to kill that person. No, I don't. That's going a shade too far. I just want to hit them with a blunt object. It's a ridiculous thing to teach. Ad group name doesn't matter. So you can call the ad group whatever you want. But people shouldn't be teaching that rubbish. I got completely sidetracked there, didn't I? Ad group name, copy that across, and then stick them all back into AdWords Editor, and off you go. Great way to do it, Ian. Sorry, don't usually talk about killing people on this show. Moving on.
Knock yourself out.
Knock yourself out. Right, remarketing. This is one of my favourite topics. So this is the example I always use, because I love Virgin Australia. They're a great brand. I was, gosh, a couple of years ago now, bouncing around Virgin Australia trying to find a flight to Phuket for a speaking gig I was doing. I then didn't buy it because I'm a bit of a tight ass. I wanted to see if I could get a better deal somewhere else using points, etc. As I'm looking through TripAdvisor, looking at the place where they're sending me and wondering how awesome my week is going to be in Phuket, what do you know? There's an ad, bottom right, for the exact flight that I've just been looking at, Melbourne to Phuket, at attractive prices, no less. Book now, good call to action. And when I click that ad, because of course I did, they take me to the absolute best page on their website for me. They know where I'm flying from, they know where I'm flying to. I've been looking at business class fares, so they show me those on the page, and I'm one click away pretty much from booking those flights. It was a couple of years ago, as you can see from the date there. But that is remarketing done very, very well. Let's talk about how to do that.
That is superb remarketing. It really is.
I typically have an example here of how to do remarketing badly. It's in Display Bootcamp. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to talk about how to do it badly. Let's set it up. So the first time you set this up, you need to go look down the bottom left-hand corner of your Google AdWords account and find this little link for Shared Library.
Mike, if I can plant a bug in your ear, I will ask you to tell the group if there is one singular grave, most egregious sin that a remarketer could commit, what would that be? You don't have to answer that now, but save that for later. At least do a little 80-20 of the 80-20 on that. So,
okay, cool. All right,
how's that?
Come back to that. Yep.
All right.
So shared library on the left-hand side. And once you've gone into there, then find the audiences section. And the first time you go in, you should see a nice big blue button there, set up remarketing. So hit that, and Google make this as easy as they possibly can for you. Now, there are multiple ways that you can do remarketing. I've got to only cover the 80-20 here. I'll talk a little bit about some of the other stuff, but we haven't got time to go into detail with some of the other ways. My favorite is Google Analytics, but this is how you do it inside your Google AdWords account. Start here, understand this first, then we can go talk about the funky stuff. Literally, send to, insert name of Geeky Web Dev here, send them a note saying, please put this on my website urgently. Mike said it was important. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this yet, but please install the code today, because when you come back in 3 months' time, after you rewatch this video a couple of times and you've gone through all of the other stuff that I've given you to do over the course of these 8 weeks, remarketing should be very near the top of your to-do list. But there's probably a bunch of other stuff competing for that, I understand. But please, please, please get the code installed on your website today, maybe tomorrow if it's midnight already where you are. Because when you come back to this in 3 months' time, you're going to have a list of people that you can start remarketing to straight away. And that might be 5,000, it might be 50,000, it might be 500,000, depending on how much traffic you get to your website. Because you get to add all traffic to your website. It's not just AdWords traffic, it's all the traffic you get from social and organic and email and direct. You get to add all of those people to your remarketing lists. And it's so much more fun when you come back in 3 months' time to have 40,000 people that you can start remarketing to straight away than coming back in 3 months' time and having to build that list from zero when you get around to doing this. So please get the code put onto your website, and maybe even just go the next couple of steps that I'm going to show you and start to build just a couple of lists. I'll show you what I mean by lists in a minute. So even if you don't go the next step and build the campaigns and get some ads created and all the other stuff that I'm going to show you today, please at least go get the code installed on your site and set up at least one audience list. And this is how you do it. If you understand code, fine. Hit the little View AdWords tag. It'll show you the code and it'll tell you what to do. If you don't understand code, just send it off to your freaky web dev dude and they will install it for you. Remarketing code needs to go on every single page of your website. So just like your Google Analytics code, it goes on every page. And showed you last week how you could do this using Google Tag Manager. Because if you've already got Tag Manager working, you've already got the container, then it's dead easy. You'd still create the code here. I showed you exactly what you need to do to go find the right 2 numbers to insert into Tag Manager. You say set up new remarketing code, please, Tag Manager. Here are the numbers that Google gave me. The rule is all pages. Publish, job done. And when you set up that remarketing tag, which is the code that goes on every site, it automatically creates your first audience. So the word audience and the word list are used interchangeably here. I will probably use both just to confuse you. An audience or a list is just a group of people that have had the similar behavior. In this case, they've visited any page on your website, or at least any page that had the remarketing code installed, but that should be every page of the site in the last 30 days. So we've got a couple of things that we can do here. We can build different audiences based on different groups of URLs. So based on the different, or let's just start with the easy way, based on individual URLs. You know, did somebody go to this page? We could put them on a list. In this case, we're saying any page, all pages of the website. And the other main thing we've got here is this membership duration. How long do we want to keep this person on this list before they drop off the other end? So if someone visits your website today, they get added to your 30-day list. In 15 days' time, they're still on the list. In 28 days' time, they're still on the list. But in 40 days' time, they're not. They haven't been back to your website since. They last visited 40 days ago, so they fall off the end of the list. Now, if they come back to the website on day 25, well, then they go back to the beginning of the list again, and they stay on this list for another 30 days from that most recent visit. So, first thing you want to do when you get to this screen is to hit that big red New Remarketing List button and go create another remarketing list, because this is the screen you're going to see over and over again as you create these different lists. So I just want to walk through all of the detail of this so you know exactly how to do this. And I would highly recommend you go do this, at least one of these, once you get off this call, or again, tomorrow if it's late where you are, because that will just help drill it in. And obviously, again, you get the video, you get all the slides, but do it sooner rather than later and just go create this one. Because this is probably the most important one that you can go build. So we'll walk through what I suggest you go fill out in here. You got to give it a name, obviously.
Before you do that, a question from Ken. He says, I can use analytics code instead of AdWords, correct? I don't want to install AdWords code if not needed. I would rather use analytics any day.
So
what's your
comment? I like to use both if possible. I'm not going to teach analytics here in detail at all, because for many people that is actually more confusing. So Ken, if analytics code makes sense to you, then that's wonderful. Up until very recently, there were some things that you couldn't do using analytics code that you could do using AdWords code. I actually can't think of anything anymore. The last one of those has been knocked down, so you can do everything now with analytics that you can do in AdWords. Just trying to think, is there anything else that no? So
and
if you want to do that, great.
And with this, is there a sense kind of like driving a car with automatic transmission versus a manual transmission? The manual transmission does in fact give you more control over the machine, but for a lot of people, just starting with an automatic transmission is a little simpler.
No, they're both. Oh, as in, yeah. So this AdWords is a little simpler in that it is only URL-based lists. So you can only build audiences based on URL rules. I'm about to show you a couple of those. In analytics, you can build lists on all of the power of analytics. So, okay, let's just go off on this tangent for a second, because, like I said, I've just spent a couple of months ago doing a 2-hour webinar on this one topic alone, on how to use analytics remarketing really, really well. Ourselves and probably one other agency that I'm aware of do this really, really well globally at scale. I don't see anybody talking about this on the blogs and forums yet, which astounds me. But the stuff you can do with analytics is amazing, because if you think about all of the reports that you have in your analytics account, you can start to slice and dice. Any way that you can slice and dice that data in analytics, you can slice and dice and build different remarketing lists. So let's say, for instance, that you get lots of traffic that comes in from Twitter and it performs really, really well for you. Well, in AdWords, you can't say just my Twitter traffic unless you happen to be using a totally different landing page for that. In analytics, you can just base your remarketing list based on the source of the traffic. So you could build a new remarketing list based on that traffic source. Or you could build a remarketing list which is somebody that's stayed on my website for more than 5 minutes, because I know that when I look at my analytics stats, I get 99% of my revenue from people that stay on my site longer than 5 minutes, but that's only 10% of my traffic. So who do I want to remarket to? I want to remarket to the people that are really, really like my buyers, but the people that haven't bought yet. I might want to remarket based on how many pages they read, or if they added a product to the cart. There's so many different ways we can use analytics marketing, but yes, don't have the extra 2 hours today. Sorry.
Right. So that's very powerful and worth, for a lot of people here on the webinar, it's really worth their pursuing and investigating and so on. Your main message seems to be you found it useful to go both directions with analytics remarketing and AdWords remarketing, and so that's kind of the basis of what you're sharing here.
Yeah, and because this isn't an analytics course, I mean, we talked a little bit about analytics last week, but because we haven't gone into great detail around all of those dimensions and metrics and stuff that is available in analytics, I know I've given you my 3-hour workshop as a bonus, which is great. Please go through that if you're interested in analytics. But because we haven't gone into great detail there, I feel as a teacher, we need that foundation first. We need to greatly understand all of that. And again, like myself and the wonderful Rob Siraki are the only agencies that I know that are doing this really, really well of all of the agencies out there. So I'm not going to teach you something here that I see 0.0001% of AdWords users using, because we're all about the 80-20. So Ken, it is awesome. So yes, please go use it. If you've got more questions about it, ask me in the Google Plus forum and I'll tell you how you can find out more about that. I think we're turning that webinar into a product. I don't know exactly what we're doing with it yet. So ask me some questions about it in the forum and I'll go into more detail.
So what we're going through here on screen is, again, how you create lists for AdWords remarketing.
Yes. Yeah. And we're doing it all in AdWords for now because it's the easiest place to get your head around it if you're new to remarketing. And I think it was the Texas private mastermind that I did back in October that sort of made me realize that although AdWords remarketing has been out almost bang on 5 years now, almost to the day, because they launched it just after we all came home from Maui in that first Maui event. So it's been almost 5 years. When I was in that private mastermind last year, there were maybe 15 businesses in the room, some very, very smart marketers, a couple of very big companies spending some decent dollars, and only half the room was actually using remarketing. Blew me away. I thought for sure all of them will be, what am I actually going to teach these guys? Like, some of them are spending 300 grand a month on traffic. What am I going to teach these guys? And yeah, there was a lot that needed to be taught. So that's why I'm starting here with the basics, get the foundations in, and then we'll do all the funky stuff another day. And if there's a call for that, then yeah, I'm more than happy to run a mastermind webinar on that topic down the track. If so, again, go hassle support at perrymarshall.com and get your requests in, and we will create the training that you guys want. So if you want to see more of that stuff, then just let us know and we'll create it. So back to the scheduled programming. What are we building here? So this is a different list, and we're going to give it a name, and I suggest that you put the duration, which we're going to fill out in a minute, as part of the name. It just makes it easier to see when you're going through your account later on. So put the duration up there. We're focusing on websites, not apps. Who do you want to add to your list? So I'll show you there's a couple of other options here in a minute, but for the now we're just going to say visitors of a page, and then we write a rule for which page or which pages that is, and I'll show you a bit more about that on the next screen. If we want, we can tell Google to start our list without 0 people, but with as many people as they think they can get on there. So include past users who match these rules. They're keeping track of past users of your site. Put that tick in there. Doesn't always work. Sometimes you'll start at 0, sometimes you'll start at 10,000. And then the membership duration. So 540 days is 1.5 years. That's the maximum that you can have. When you get a bit more advanced with remarketing and you get a bit funky, I'm going to suggest that you have a whole bunch of membership durations for each list. So you might have, this is our all site visitors list. I might have an all site visitors 7-day list, 14-day list, 28-day list, 90-day list, 365, 540. The reason being is I can get a bit funky later on, and I can say show ads to people that are on my 90-day list but not on my 30-day list, and that means I can change the ads that I serve up through time. I can also change the bid through time. So I can do funky stuff like match my remarketing ads to my autoresponder sequence. Autoresponder sequence we're all very familiar with. You send an email on day 1 and day 3 and day 7 and day 15 and day 21 and on and on and on, for example. Well, I could have my ads change and show the same message as I'm using in the AR sequence by using different time periods for my remarketing lists and then getting clever with how I combine those. Again, that's not 80/20. I'm not going to go into that. All I'm saying is you might want multiple durations. If you only go and create one list today, go create the longest one you possibly can. Now, it's fair to say that in a year and a half's time, there is no way that you're still going to be able to reach everybody that came to your website today. People change computers, people block cookies, people clear cookies, but there will still be a large number of them on that list. And when you come back to remarketing in a few months, if you don't get stuck into it immediately, which you might want to do, then at least you're going to have this big group of people to go show ads to. It's also just a good fail-safe. You're essentially building this extra little asset. You're building this group of people. Again, you don't get to see anything about those group of people. You don't get an email address. You don't get an IP address. You just get how many are on that list. You go from 40,000 to 40,001 to 40,002. You just see a number, the number of people on that list, and you can say to Google, show ads to those people. If you've got this 540-day list, it's a good fail-safe. You know, let's assume that the CEO does something stupid and you're on the nightly news. Well, you've got this little radio station here of 40,000 people that you can turn on at any time and tell your side of the story. Or maybe it's something not as bad as that. You launch a new product or a new service. You were able to just turn that ad on and tell all of those previous visitors about this new product or service. Now, you may well have a whole bunch of email addresses. You might have a good list. You certainly have got a list of buyers inside the business, so you can email them and tell them that way too. But more powerful to have them see this from multiple angles. And it's just, why wouldn't you? It's so easy to do, to create this extra list of 540 days. Why would you only create the default 30-day lists? You're only going to have people on there that have been to your site within the last month. If they haven't been back to the site within that time, they fall off the list and you can't remarket to them. They stay on this list for a long time. So the rules, we've got stuff like this. We've got URL contains or doesn't contain, starts with, ends with. Generally, contains is good enough, unless there's a real reason that you need to use something else. But generally, you can use URL contains, and then you're going to insert there for your, say, for your all visitors. You might put the URL. So down the bottom here, we've got URL contains behavior management. So if their website was behaviormanagement.com, it isn't, but let's just assume it is, then that rule applies to all pages of the site. And so that's the people that would get added to this list. If I had a swimwear store and I've got men's, ladies, and kids sections to the store, and I've got URLs, you know, myswimwearstore.com/men's or /ladies or /kids, then I could say URL contains /men's, and that's going to add all of the people that went to that part of my website to my men's list /ladies, all of the people that went to that part of the site to my /ladies or to my ladies list, and so on. So hopefully that makes sense. There's also a few other rules in there, but for the most part, you're going to go URL contains, and then insert the part of the URL that you want, and Google builds the rule for you. Once you've done all of that, it then looks like this in the interface. We've got our automatically created list there at the bottom, and the new list that we just built, which is a rule-based list.
And Mike, is that, you might understand that that's like essential Boolean logic, where to kind of point to a question Ken is asking, can you create a remarketing list that says all the people who've been to my website but have not put an item in their shopping cart?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
One of those lists is have been to here and not to here.
Perfect.
There's multiple ways you can do that. You can do that with a rule. You can also do it using this, a thing called a custom combination or a custom combo. So you can do that with two. You can do that with just the one rule, or you can use something like this. This is your Boolean logic for you, but this example I'm actually showing you how to do the different durations. So you can do this with, let's say you had a list of interested visitors and you had a list of buyers. At the top here you would say everybody on my interested list and not those on my buyers list. What I'm showing you here is everybody on my 45-day list and not everybody on my 15-day list. And what I'm going to end up with is my all site visitors 45 but not 15. I've realized at the top I've put 45-15 because that's how we think about it, 45 but not 15. It would probably make more sense to write that the other way around, and all site visitors 15 to 45, because it's all the people that have been to my site in that time frame. So the reason for that would be that I might want to bid $5 a click for the first 15 days. If I haven't managed to get them back to my website, if they haven't responded to those ads, I might want to drop that bid down to, say, $1 between days 15 and 45. And then I might have another custom combo so I could bid 50 cents for days 45 through to wherever I want to give up. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Cool. And so this is what it might look like in my interface. I end up with, and again, one audience per ad group. And I'm labeling my ad groups the same name as the audience, just like we have done for our other campaign types. I've got two ad groups here, all site visitors 15 days, which I've got bid at $3 in this case. And I've got my all site visitors 45 to 15 combo, because that's my custom combination, which I've dropped the bid a little there. And you can see that my conversion rate, exactly as it should be, all the way over on the right-hand side, my conversion rate for those most recent visitors is almost double the not-so-recent visitors. So you might take this to the nth degree. We often do. The first ad group that we'll have will be 0 to 3 days, and then 3 to 7, 7 to 15, 15 to 30, or 15 to 45, because I want to bid more for those very recent visitors, because they are the ones that are most likely to buy. Last note on remarketing, you absolutely must change, or at least check, your privacy policy. And there's a page on the Google website. Just go search for this phrase, what to include in your privacy policy for remarketing. So I don't have a Google code for that one, apologies, but just search for that phrase. Even privacy policy for remarketing would do it. I'm not a lawyer, don't play one on TV, can't write that privacy policy for you. I will say, in a hypothetical world, what you might hypothetically choose to do is to go find a website that does remarketing very well, like an ASOS or an Iconic or a Best Buy, or somebody in your industry that you know does remarketing very well because you've seen them. You might want to go look at their privacy policy. And I'm not saying go swipe and deploy, but you might want to at least read their privacy policy and see some of the stuff that may be missing from yours. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Right. Let's get on to the really fun stuff, some of the newer stuff. I'm sure people are jumping up and down going, remarketing, another 2 hours, please. We can do more on that. Again, well, we did the behavioral webinar end of last year, so depending on your membership level inside of perrymarshall.com, you may actually have a hour-and-a-half webinar that I did just on behavioral, and a lot of that was remarketing. So anyway, got this other stuff I want to show you, and we've got 40 minutes maximum because I've got a call at 12:45. I'm going to try and squeeze this into 25 minutes. I'm not sure how we're going to go. In market, it should not surprise you that Google understands an awful lot about you. It keeps track of your search history, your browsing history, which ads you click on, obviously, how often you convert, all of this stuff. And I set this up right at the beginning by saying Google knows that you're in the market to buy a certain thing based on all of that knowledge. And there's a few. There's 492 you can see at the top there. And they're adding new stuff to this all the time. So one of them is cars, hence the picture you just saw. But it gets really, really granular here. I can say people that are in the market for a new SUV or a new truck or a new sports car. I can even go by brand, so I can target people that are in the market for a new or used Audi or a new BMW. Now, that's great if you're selling cars, but it might also be useful marketing segments to try if you sell other products that maybe are similar or complementary. And this is sort of where you've got to think more laterally with display network. You don't just have to go for the jugular don't have to just go for the bullseye on our archery target. I suggest you start there, but there might be a whole bunch of other groups of people that you could also target. I mentioned before that business services was a new one that has just rolled out of beta. I wanted to highlight this one because there is an SEO and SEM services in there. There are 100 or so of us on the call, and maybe we're all about to start using that one, and the other agencies won't be because they don't know that this exists. So you might want to take advantage of that one. There's also a web design one in there somewhere. I'm not sure where that's hiding, but further down the page. But you can see, it's unlikely, if you've got a range of clients, it's unlikely that there is not an in-market audience that is pretty closely aligned with a product. Not everybody will be on here, but there are so many of these in-market audiences now that I urge you to try them. Down to this level of detail, people that are interested in 5-star hotels, people that are interested in air travel to Los Angeles or Atlanta or New York or Sydney, people that are interested in and in the market for right now business class airfare based on their recent search history, their recent browsing history, and their recent conversion. The fact that they are ad clickers, the fact that they convert. Google's looking at all of that stuff and saying, of all of the people that you could target, so now you can see why I'm not a big fan of managed placements and why stuff like this is so much more powerful than saying, stick an ad on Vogue and wait for someone to bump into it. Well, let's target her by the fact that we know that she's into yoga right now and she's been shopping for yoga stuff. Let's show her the ad because of that information and that behavior, rather than the fact that she's browsing this big website that we happen to know about. Way more powerful. So, all of that said, let's get to my favorite one. Display select. This isn't exactly search remarketing, but it's kind of along the same lines. What do I mean by search remarketing? And search remarketing does exist, but not precisely inside of the Google system at this point in time. 3 ways to do this. One of them is your existing keywords. So if somebody were to search for, what's the example I've got? AdWords. Right, so let's say someone's searching for AdWords training. I could show them an ad based on the fact that they are searching for AdWords training. I could show them a normal search ad. We all understand that part. Display select allows me to show them a banner ad based on the fact that I just know that they just searched for a particular keyword. And again, it's not just, that's the easy way to describe it. It's based on their recent search history. And it's just in this session. So it's not a long-term cookie, like a 30-day cookie or a 45-day cookie. It's just this online session, whatever session means to Google. I typically, when I'm describing this, I say, maybe it's the next half an hour, maybe it's the next 4 hours. Let's just assume it's the next couple of hours. So over the course of the next couple of hours, after they have gone and searched for this specific search term, I get to choose this because it's a keyword list, just like my search campaign, but I'm not showing them search ads, I'm showing them display ads. This is what is included in that search network with display select that I talked about in Module 4 that I said we're never going to use. And again, we're never going to use it because we don't want to mix these two completely different types of traffic. We don't want to muddy the waters. We don't want all of those stats. We want these things completely separate. Display select has been in beta for the past 3 or 4 months. We've been lucky enough to be part of that private beta. It is now rolled out of beta. So this is publicly available to everybody. I'm going to show you where to find the setting in a second. This is the stuff that's getting us $42 leads in a market where we should be paying $500. This is freaking awesome. The other thing, well, the second one, I'm going to get to the fun one in a second, but another way you can use this are top of funnel keywords, keywords that you would never normally bid on for a search campaign. So beer, for instance. Now, this is probably not the best example because we are on a beer page and I could contextually target this. I hadn't thought of that. But if I was selling beer, as one of my mates does, if I wouldn't normally bid on to show a search ad to someone that just types in beer, because we know that single word keywords tend to not be very profitable. But for display select, it's a great way to go back and test those assumptions, that that person that's searching for those big, general, high volume single word keywords, we can show ads based on that recent search. And again, just like the rest of the system, we're only going to pay for this on a cost per click basis. You could bid the CPM if you wanted to. I always start CPC. So you're only going to pay if and when they click on this ad. The rest of the time, it's free branding. But the one I really wanted to show you, and the most fun one I think for this, are competitor keywords. So, adrenaline.com.au. I do not run this account. I have met the guy that owns this company. He was at the Richard Koch event in Chicago. Great guy, awesome company. They could bid on a search like Red Balloon, their biggest competitor here in Australia. And they do. But we all know the problems associated with that. You're going to pay higher than you need to in terms of CPC. You're going to get a low quality score for those competitor terms almost all of the time, because Google sees that there isn't a high chain of relevance there. You know, the person was searching for Red Balloon. Red Balloon is obviously going to get 9s and probably 10 out of 10 quality scores. Adrenaline almost certainly isn't. They've managed to get red in there, which is quite clever. They haven't got balloon in there, so there's a slight disconnect there. And then obviously you're taking them to a page that doesn't talk about Red Balloon, that isn't on the Red Balloon domain name. So Google knows you're not the most relevant advertiser, and so it's going to score you down in terms of quality score. Expect to see 3s and 4s for keywords in your competitor search campaign. And you may get a cease and desist letter from their lawyer if they think that you're using deceptive and misleading conduct. Again, you can bid on anything in the Google system. Doesn't matter if it's trademarked or not. What you can't do, you can't use the trademark term in your ad, and you can't use deceptive and misleading conduct. So this is a much more interesting way to target, because I can now target the people that have just been searching for Red Balloon. I may or may not choose to continue to show my search ad, but I could show my display ad wherever the person is. They don't now have to be on a page that I can contextually target. They don't have to be on my remarketing list. I like to think of this as being able to put a remarketing pixel on my competitor's website. That's freaking powerful. I can show display ads to people that have just been searching for my competitor by name, so they almost certainly ended up on the Red Balloon website. So it's a little bit like being able to remarket to their visitors. The difference being it's a very, very, very short time frame. You get them for this session, whatever that session is. That might be 8 hours, it might be 10 minutes. So tend to bid these up. I don't expect high volume from these at all. Google sort of say this is 90% less volume than your typical GDN campaign. That is meant to be a vague number on purpose, but it's significantly less volume. But really, really, really powerful, really, really good CPAs on this, and it's just rolled out of beta. So this is how you do it. Set this up as a normal contextual campaign. So again, 1 word per ad group. Now, unfortunately, at this point, you're going to have to enable this setting at the ad group level. If you're lucky enough to have a Google rep that knows this, because I know of a couple of students of mine in the UK have got Google reps, but their reps don't even know how to do this. What your rep should be able to do is to whitelist your entire display select campaign on the back end. They flick a switch. It's a bit like a campaign exclusion, which I'm going to show you in a second. They flick a switch and says, whitelist this entire campaign for display select. If you can, do that. You just send the CID to your Google rep, please whitelist for display select, and they'll say, done. Within a couple of hours, usually, if you've got a good rep. If you don't have a Google rep, if you're doing this for your own account, this is how you do it, assuming that it's showing up in your account yet. It may not even be in your account yet. That's how new this is. It is still rolling out of beta, but I've checked a number of accounts this morning, and I'm seeing it in 90% plus of accounts that I'm looking at. It's a contextual campaign setup, 1 keyword per group, and then you go into the targeting for that ad group, and you should see for the keyword targeting part, you should see this checkbox at the bottom of the keyword targeting section. And you tick Enable Display Select. There you go, focus on customers who are 35% more likely to convert, but reach 90% fewer customers on average. And one of the big things that they do here is they do look at conversion history for the people that they show ads to. You're more likely to show ads to people that have converted on other websites. Now again, we have no idea of knowing of what those conversions are, if that's someone buying a $1,000 thing or viewing an important page or something in between. But they are looking at how often does this person convert? How often does this person click on an ad? And if you're showing ads to people that are more likely to click and more likely to convert, that has to be a good thing. Any questions on that piece of gold before we move on? Please go try this. This is awesome.
No questions yet. I'll keep my eye on the box.
Awesome. All right. Free bonus time, because I knew I wasn't going to have time to dig into all of this. So write down that URL if you may. Brian, if you could throw that in the chat pad for me, because I can't, that'd be awesome. While I describe what I'm giving you. This is a stage presentation, so you don't get to see me, only hear me, unfortunately for you, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, during all of this. So I thought I'd just give you something a little different. This is a stage presentation I gave 4 or 5 months ago. Me rabbiting on for about an hour or so. I cover in there the step-by-step of how to set up your YouTube campaign and a case study where I show you the power of it. And I won't give the game away. You can go watch the video. But we were able to get leads very, very cheaply in a market that's a $5 or $6 per click market. And the guy wanted leads for under $5. And it's typically a $5 or $6 a click market. And I show you exactly what we did. I show you his exact video and exactly how to set it up in that talk. There you go. Thank you very much for throwing that in the chat pad. So make sure you click that link before we close down the webinar in 10-15 minutes so that you've got that page. I'll try and remember to throw the link. I need to write a note. Link in Google Plus for YouTube. Right. Exclusions. So the display network equivalent of negative keywords. First one we're going to do is to exclude what I'll call, for the sake of argument, dodgy placements. If you scroll down any of your display network campaigns, once you go to the display network tab in your account, scroll down to the bottom of the page and you have this site category options. And these are the 8 that we will typically exclude from all campaigns. Don't care what the targeting method is, whether it's text or image, we exclude all of these. The top 6 are the dodgy ones. They are termed sensitive categories inside the Google system. But I don't want my clients' ads showing up on pages that are talking about death and tragedy, or that are talking about sexually suggestive stuff or profane language. I don't want to get a screenshot from a client saying, what the is our ad doing on this page? So we take out those top 6 every time. And there's also a couple of others in there that we'll generally exclude because we've just found from all of our testing that this is just crappy quality traffic. So in-game ads that show in games, in apps, and this Gmob mobile app non-interstitial, I have no idea what that even means. I just know that it doesn't give us good results, so we exclude it. Doing that stops your ad show in some apps, but you'll still find a lot. We had a VIP call the other day. I won't mention the gentleman's name. I think he's on the call. We discovered that just this one that I'm about to show you is going to save him 20% of his costs. Certainly in the campaign we looked at, but he's now going to go add this to all of his other display campaigns. I've seen instances where this saves 80% of your display network spend. So if 80% is currently being wasted, you add this one line and your entire account is now 5 times more profitable instantly. So the other 2 exclusions were useful. The in-game, the Gmob mobile. But this line AdSense for mobile apps.com. Actually, Brian, could you throw that in the chat window for me as well, please? Because I want people to grab that, and I will, again, write a note to throw that in the G+ community as well. But AdSense for, F-O-R, mobile apps.com. So you add that as a placement exclusion. So you go display network tab first, then placements, and then scroll down to the bottom, campaign exclusions, exclude that. And that stops your ad showing in apps across mobile and tablet. And that can save you up to 80% of wasted spend. And then a way to exclude buyers. Ken mentioned this before. Can I not show ads to people that have bought from me? Well, you can either do this by creating that rule that we saw when you created your remarketing campaign. There is a rule in there that says visitors of this page, but not visitors of this page. So not visitors of your receipt page or your thanks page. You can do this with a custom combination. And for many years we did do that. I've actually stopped doing that now, and I do it this way. So I save my custom combos for the date range stuff that I showed you, and I exclude buyers this way by actually making them an exclusion from the campaign or from the ad group. So rather than build all of these different custom combos, because I build a lot of custom combos for all the different date ranges that I want to target, to keep things clean, I now use custom combos for dates. And in my targeting, so for this particular ad group, I might target everybody that's been to the cart of my site, and I'll add that into one ad group, all cart visitors. And then to get rid of the buyers, I'll use this. I'll come into the campaign exclusions part, and I'll exclude people that bought in the last 30 days. So that's another way that you can do it. So 3 ways that you can do it. This is my preferred way. Does that make sense? Any questions about that?
No questions yet.
Cool. And that's what it looks like when it's done. And just as a bonus one here, when you go into those category exclusions, which is where you find all that sensitive content stuff, there is an option in there for below the fold. So this is the fairly non-intuitive way of only showing ads above the fold. If you exclude below the fold, you're only showing ads above the fold. Don't use this very much, but if you have a very low budget, particularly for something like remarketing, where you want to make a bigger impact, you want to make sure that people have seen your ad, then you might test excluding below the fold. A couple of notes on landing pages, and then we'll talk very quickly about some image ad stuff. It's absolutely fine to start with your search landing pages, whatever you use over there. If you have a different offer, obviously, maybe you want to warm them up a bit more slowly, you want to give something away, then you might need a different landing page. But 80% of the time, it's absolutely fine to start with your search landing pages. There's 2 sides to this, as always, as Google and the user. From a user point of view, we want to maintain the scent between, this is something Brian Eisenberg talks a lot about in that article that Brian shared in Module 1. You want to maintain the scent between the ad that they've just seen and what happens next. And from a Google point of view, obviously, we want to be very wary of the policies. And I'll give you the URL for the policy page in a second. So, Cathay Pacific showed me these ads. Again, I was bouncing around looking at flights. And I thought, oh, here's an opportunity for another screenshot. Awesome. Because I need some more of those, because I use the Virgin one too often. So I took a screenshot of this, clicked on the ad, and went here and went, what just happened? What exactly just happened? And here's the tiny little thing that ad was talking about. First of all, they drop me on the homepage of the site, and then they bury the thing that they've just enticed me to click on. And I really had to search hard to find the Hong Kong Premium Economy Super Sale right down towards the bottom of the page, sort of below the fold. Certainly on an iPad or a laptop, that would have been below the fold. Insane. Remarketing done badly. Compare that to, no pun intended, sorry, the Compare the Meerkat campaign. Here's the ad, shows on Oprah, compare a range of insurance, which takes me to the page, compare the market, compare a range of health insurance options to fit your lifestyle. The graphics, the copy, the color scheme are all consistent with the ad that I've just seen. None of that was true for the first example. So remember that when someone lands on your site, they are not thinking, "Ooh, where do I buy?" They're thinking, "Should I stay on this page for another 5-10 seconds of my life?" That's what something in the corner of their brain is actually saying to them. Do I stay or do I go? Insert song here. They're not talking about, should I buy? So you just want to convince them to hang around a bit longer. And the way you do that is by not freaking them out and taking them to something that looks and sounds and feels totally different to the ad that they just responded to. So maintain that scent while keeping Google happy with their policies. Image ads. There are 4 types of ads that you can show. I'm going to focus on image ads, the second one here. First, a brief mention of text ads. Very brief, this is the only slide. I will typically start my text campaigns. Remember, we're going to have a campaign for each type, one for text and one for image. I'll typically have 3 ads. So I might have my best search ad, whatever's converting best for the equivalent targeting over on search. The eye-catching ad, or the Swiss Army ad, if you like, that more creative one, I might be using the style and the white space in that ad, or it might be a much more of a Swiss Army, more emotive, not what they're expecting to see ad. And then I'll have a keyword stuffed ad, so something that just very keyword stuffed. It's likely to repeat the word, the thing, the theme, and see if I can get clicks that way. And then I'll see which of those perform and adjust accordingly. But if you don't want to just grab what's in search, they're the other types of ads that I would use. But I really want to talk about image ads in the time we've got left. Technical specs. JPEGs, GIFs, or PNG. You can have flash ads. I don't use flash ads anymore. HTML5. If you want animated ads, HTML5. But I'm going to talk about my system in just a second. You don't need to worry about animation yet. Everything needs to be less than 150K. You have to stress that with your designer, because they'll usually ignore that bottom line and they'll make ads that are 300K and Google just won't allow them in the system. Other thing you want to stress with your designer, have them go to this page, Google shortcode on your screen, particularly that last section down there, the editorial and technical section. Have your designer read through that. This is really important. We've talked about the difference between branding and direct response many times over the course of the last 7 weeks, but for me, the reason that you have an AdWords account is for testing. It's a nice strategic byproduct of a good AdWords account that you happen to get lots of quality traffic to your website. This is about testing first and foremost. It's not about branding, but you will typically get the hippo or the graphic designer that says, well, it must be purple because our brand is all about purple. Well, no, we don't know if that's actually the best ad to make you the most money. So if you have a client that gives you a 300-page brand guideline of what the ad can and can't look like, I would suggest you pack up bags and run away. It's not worth the hassle. You're never going to be happy. You're never going to be able to get them good results, or certainly not the best results. And, well, yeah, really no amount of money is worth that. So run the other way, go get a decent client. Here's my system for image ads. We've used this over and over and over and over and over and over again, and we get great results every time with this. You start off by testing lots of big differences in ads, lots of big ideas, all the same size. It's called 300 by 250 pixels. It's also called a medium rectangle or a medrec. So you may often find media buyers will talk about medrecs because they're trying to show off 300 by 250 pixels. So here's an example from quite a long time ago now that we did for a client, because I'm not going to show you any of the really, really recent stuff just to protect my client's privacy. But this one, you feel free to copy because it's from 3 years ago. And our friend Laura Husman at banneradqueen.com did these for us. And you can see that they're very different. Some use photographs, some use more of a clip art style illustration. Sorry, got a frog in my throat. This was all about giving away a chapter of Rick's book. Some don't even show the book. Some of the ads show the book, some don't. We've got different calls to action, free chapter here, free download, instant access. And only one of them, bottom right, actually shows Rick, the author of the book, who's a very well-known property educator or real estate investor here in Australia. I believe he does an awful lot of stuff in the States as well. So the first thing we wanted to do there was just test which of these styles get the best click-through rate. So to begin with, I'm not even really interested in, I'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not really interested in conversion rate or CPA. I just want to know which of these styles of ads attracts the most people to click through to my site, because the job of the ad is to get the click. The job of the page is then to go sell it. And when I'm testing this, because resources are always limited, I won't have 9 different or 20 different or however many different ads you've got, but I won't have 9 different landing pages. I would in a perfect world. They would all match the scent that we've talked about before, and they would all perfectly match the imagery and the call to action, and everything would be perfect. But it doesn't make sense at this stage, because I'm about to throw 7 of these ads away. It doesn't make sense to go build 9 different landing pages. As long as the offer is the same, then I'm going to send all of this traffic to the same landing page. The offer is consistent. It may not convert the best for some of the ads, but again, I'm not really worried about conversion yet. I'm just interested in click-through rate to start with. So here's another example, and these are just 3 of the 9 different ads that we ran this time, just to illustrate the point. In this case, we actually mixed and matched. So we've got Crazy Lady, we've got the couple, and we've got Guy with Megaphone down the bottom. We've got Wow, Save, and Hurry. So we mixed and matched all of those, but just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just showing you 3 together with the click-through rates that we got for those ads. Now in this case, that top ad is only roughly double the bottom ad. Typically, if we run 10 ads, and there's a big enough difference between those 10 ads, so they can't all be very, very similar, but if there's a big enough difference, the difference between winner and loser is often in the range of 300–400%, with scary accuracy over and over again. The top ad is 4 or 5 times better than the worst ad. But again, all the same size at this point. I'm not interested in testing all of the other sizes. 300 by 250 gives me the best trade-off between high volume and a decent click-through rate. So I could talk about all the others and pros and cons, but we don't have time. Just go the 300 by 250. That top ad ended up being a billboard in the middle of Adelaide. So we use Google Display Network ads to quickly test ideas. I don't know that that's the best billboard that you could possibly have, but I do know that that ad got twice as many clicks as the one that the hippo wanted to use. I now have data to say, well, this is twice as good as that. Twice as many people clicked on it. Twice as many people were attracted to it. Why don't we use that for the billboard? Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. All right.
And that was an actual photograph of an actual billboard, not just a Photoshop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's not Photoshop. That's an actual photo. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I always forget that people do things like that. Yeah. Where do you go to get these ads created? I'm going to whiz through this now. Minibannerzen.com or $20 banners. They are okay. They're not great, but they're okay. The benefit is they both have 40+ pages of portfolio, so you can go through those, look at examples, maybe cut and paste some that you like into a Word doc, hand them to your designer. I did that we use a tool called adbeat.com. Shout out to Mike Kalea, great piece of software. It's paid, so you don't have to have it, you don't need it, but that allows me to search through. It's like SpyFu, but for the display network. So it allows me to see the competitor ads that are running, and I can see how long those ads have been running and roughly how much money is going into them. The assumption, therefore, being that this is a good ad that works in that market. So that's a spy tool that you can use, adbeat, adbeat.com. You can build them for free in the Google interface. If you go into the ads section and then click on the big red add a new ad, down to add gallery, these days it looks like this. I'm not sure if you noticed, but one of my ads earlier with my smiling face in the middle of it was actually one of these new Lightbox ads. So I can link my ad to 3 YouTube videos, and I can show YouTube videos inside that expanded ad. It's expandable, very new. If you click on general purpose, that's probably a good place to start. You then get a whole bunch of templates. Please don't use the elated design with Happy Chick with her laptop, because we've all seen that stock photo a million times. That's not going to be the best ad that you can run. But you click on one of these as a starting point, and then you can customize it. You can even animate in here. And if you come down into this section here where I'm choosing from the image, update image, you can see that there's stock image gallery, and you can even choose from thousands of stock images and put those in your ad as well. Top tips. Include some hand-drawn elements. So like the direct response boys have been doing for 100 years, that little arrow or the circle around the call to action button. Something in there just as a bit of a pattern interrupt for your brain that calls out that little thing and makes it more obvious, makes you notice it. Include a button or something that looks like a button in the ad. Of course, you don't have to click on the button. You click anywhere on the ad, you go through the landing page, but that mental heuristic, that shortcut of, oh, it's a button, I'll click on it, will often improve your click-through rate. And if you can, get the word free in there somewhere. What to test? Imagery. Test different images. So having just said that Google does have a whole bunch of stock photos, don't use the obviously stock photo. That bloke in the middle, I can't tell you how many websites I've seen him on shaking hands with people in various suits. See these stock photos everywhere, and we have a pretty good bullshit detector for stock images somewhere in our brain, and it just is less believable, less credible. What to test? We like to see pictures of smiling people. Generally, we like to look at happy faces. So using people in ads is typically good, but you might want to show the product. You may or may not want to include the price in your ad. You might want to test that. And ultimately the end result. If you can find a way to show the end result either with words or by showing them a picture, that old one of people don't want the drill, they want the hole in the wall. No, they don't. They don't actually want a hole in the wall. What they want is a place to hang the picture of the kids and show off to the neighbors. That's the end result that they want. If you can, show them that. Hard sell versus soft sell. So the reason display doesn't work for a lot of people is that they try and drop them straight on the form to fill out for the new car insurance application or whatever it might be. Well, they weren't looking for new car insurance right now. They weren't searching. They were browsing the magazine. They were reading the blog, and they happened to bump into your ad. So start with a softer sell. Think about, I'll come back to Dean Jackson's stuff of ilovemarketing.com. I've mentioned this a couple of times on the Google Plus community. Go to ilovemarketing.com. There's a 35-page PDF on there. It's some of the best marketing information you'll get for free anywhere, and have a read of that. It's all about making your invisible prospects visible. It's all about compelling them to do something. So it's going to be different for everybody, but think about, how do I start the sales process? What's right at the top? And do that rather than the bottom of funnel stuff. Test different fonts. That makes a big difference. That the font that you see can make a big difference to how you feel about something. Please don't use Comic Sans. Test colors. Test different calls to action. I'm going to give you my super sneaky secret weapon here. That short code will get you into, I think it's Graphic River. It's this site here. I'll go back so you got that code. If you get a moment to throw that in the chat pad, that would be lovely. I am racing through this, I know, because I've got a call in 6 minutes. I'm desperate for the loo. That shortcode will get you to Graphic River. You can buy all of those buttons for a whopping $5. $5 for all of those, and they're PSD files that you can give to your designer and say, go edit this, rather than get charged for 3 hours for them to faff around and create a button and then another 2 hours for them to create a different one. Just buy a box of buttons for $5. There you go. There's another one there for $2. You can sort these by best sellers. You can categorize them. Awesome resource, Graphic River. That's my sexist slide for the day. Once you've found a winner, then test variations on that image, whatever it might be. You might test the cute girl versus the cute guy versus the young couple versus the old couple. If the cute girl wins, well, which cute girl? Let's test different versions of that idea. And then we can go and get the other sizes created. And then we can go animate if we really, really want to. But start with them all 300 by 250. That's the best trade-off. High volume and good click-through rates. And then go get all of the other sizes built. And the last one, just as a little hack here, you can use labels in your account to remind you of what are the elements of those buttons. and then you can do all sorts of funky stuff in terms of reporting and pivot tables. Rather than just have a list of ad names, if you put all of the different elements there as labels, because you can have multiple labels per ad. It takes a bit of work to do, but labels are now available through the APIs. I'm sure the very smart ones of you can figure out some funky ways to do that. That's quite a nice little hack. Speaking of, more hacks next week, last one in the series. I'll give you some of the tools that we use here in the agency, some of the scripts that we use here, and we'll talk about ongoing management of your accounts. And I'm going to give you a checklist, which is what I know everybody wants, a checklist of what to do to manage all the accounts. That's me. I'm done. See you next week. Can I beg that we throw any major questions into the Google Plus pad, because I know I've gone over time, and
yeah, there was a question about a editorial guideline short link. There was a question about excluding a buyer for e-commerce that came from John. So if you folks are okay with putting that into Google Plus, then Mike, you can go visit Baloo and make your call anytime.
Please. Yeah, sorry I have to ask you to do that, guys, but this week we have gone for 100 minutes, and I got to run.
Excellent.
We'll be back next week.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.